As we enter the first year of the 12-team expanded college football playoff, you've had some people and pundits out there say that they think it's going to hurt the regular season from the jump. And I couldn't disagree more for a couple reasons. One, the back end of the season, you still have a chance to make the college football playoff, which would therefore give you a chance to win a national championship. So now if you're 9-2 Tennessee, playing 8-4 Kentucky, outside of just hoping maybe that extra win will get you a New Year's Six Bowl, maybe that last game can help you backdoor your way into the college football playoff if you're not playing in the SEC championship game. Now imagine that times 1,000,000. But let's look on the front end of the regular season. You can actually lose a couple games, mostly non-conference, and still have a chance to make the college football playoff if you turn it around, like, I don't know, Virginia Tech did at the end of last year and a couple others. So to me, to say that it's going to reduce the importance or the fun or the excitement level of the regular season, I couldn't disagree with you more. Also, another caveat and a point I think we need to make sure that we hit when it comes down to conference championship games mattering. Well, that's not the regular season. That's a postseason game. But I still have a hard time believing that any fans or any players or any coaches on any team wouldn't want to try and, one, not only go win a ring, so regardless of what happens after, you still have a championship, but two, win a conference championship to be able to get a bye as one of the Power Four conference champions in the college football playoff, which automatically and guarantees you being one step closer to winning a national championship. The only way I can see the expanded playoff hurting the regular season is when we inevitably go to 16 teams and more, now probably having to take one regular season game away, going back to our 11-game regular season schedule that we had for so long due to player safety. You can't on one hand say you care about player safety, but also increase games in the postseason and keep the same amount of games during the regular season. So anybody that tells you that the college football playoff is going to hurt the regular season, I think it's the exact opposite. And I think a lot of y'all feel the same way. Speaking of a guy who understands a little bit about watching his team play in the playoff, Michigan won the whole thing last year, former Michigan quarterback David Cone. My brother, who's, had won a few playoff games of his own, Crain, former Western State, Colorado wide receiver. And David, I'm not seeing, I'm not buying this, the expanded playoff is going to make the regular season less important. Mm-hmm. To me, it makes it even more important on the front end, the middle end, and the back end.
Well, I get that the playoff is being tripled in size from 4 to 12, but still, that's 12 slots for 133 football teams. So, I mean, the percentage is still relatively small. And I feel like one of the arguments that gets used, which is good, is to say, like, college football is the only sport where the very first game of the season matters. That's a phrase that gets said a lot. Yeah. And it is so true. I mean, baseball has a 162-game schedule. Even an NFL game, like, hey, you could lose every game in your division and win all the games outside your division, you'd still be the division champ, which is a crazy thing in the NFL. So I get that part about college football, that, hey, it's the only sport where the very first game of the season matters. But, like, we're about to break down these top 10 non-conference games. The loser of some of these games is going to get left out of the playoff because that's how much those games are going to matter. I think we're going to strike a nice balance between 12 spots out of 133 potential teams to make that playoff to where you still have to bring it every single week. Every game matters, but at the same time, if you lose one game in the first 3 weeks, you're not left out of a chance to participate in the postseason.
And to your first point, and that's almost the main argument that people make about saying, well, the playoff's going to hurt the regular seasons. Now the games don't matter as much. I just think that's so abhorrently wrong because there's a lot more similarities to college basketball with what we're seeing now. How many times have we seen a team that's on the bubble be left out of the tournament because they have a quad 3 or a quad 4 loss at the beginning of the season, right? How many times have we seen teams get into the tournament, right, just barely scrape by, that were maybe in the last 4 in that did get in because they won a big non-conference game early in the year? But even if you lose those games, if you win your conference tournament, you get an automatic bid to the NCAA tournament. So how does that compare to football? Well, at the beginning of the season, if you lose to a team that you're not supposed to, or a group of 5 or an FCS team, and you're one of those teams at the end of the year that's on the bubble, that doesn't get let in because you have that bad loss, that first game did matter a lot. But guess what? You still control your own destiny, because if you're in a power conference or that one group of 5 conference, which we talked about, if you handle your business during the conference season, you can automatically get a bid into the college football playoff. So I think on both ends, that argument is wrong and can be proven to be wrong, Blaine. And another point, and I want you to speak on this, is it's not like meritocracy's been thrown out the window. You still got to win the games on the field. And the teams that finish the best in the best conferences do get a bye, but they still have to win multiple games. So it's not like you're just giving somebody an automatic path to the championship game. You've still got to prove it on the field once you get to the postseason.
Yeah, I agree with both of you. I don't know how adding the playoffs makes games less important. Every game is important. Now, can you lose a game and still get in? But yeah, you control your own destiny. And, I mean, from a winning and seeding standpoint, every game matters. And it's going to be tougher. I do agree. It's going to be tougher to win a national championship now. And depth will matter more now than it ever has. But I don't think people who think the regular season got lessened because we added the playoffs, there's no proof of that. And if there is, please show me.
Yeah, and again, there's some people that we got a lot of respect for that we know no ball have said that. And those people, in our opinion, need to wake up a little bit. But speaking of waking up, you want to wake up each morning feeling dialed in, ready to make the most of your day. Carpe the diem, as the Germans used to say. And Black Rifle Coffee helps you wake up each morning feeling that way. Not only that, David, Black Rifle Coffee's explosive coffees are roasted right here in the good old USA.
Good.
Uncle Sam, Mother Liberty, Father Sky, your good old Uncle Tony. And it's also a veteran-led team of expert roasters who take pride in serving coffee and culture to people who love it. And with every purchase you make, it helps them further their mission to support veteran and first responder causes. Everything from getting funding and equipment to first responders to helping vets get medical care. So head to blackriflecoffee.com right now and use code DailyWire, all one word, for 20% off America's coffee. That's blackriflecoffee.com. Use code DailyWire. David, your favorite flavor is Gunship or Blackbeard's Delight?
I'm drinking Gunship right now. I just finished Blackbeard's Delight. I also like Silencer Smooth.
Blaine, yours Power Llama. You're a big Power Llama guy.
I'm a more Ichabod Crane guy myself, the Headless Horseman.
Oh, you like the pumpkin? The pumpkin
I can
spice.
respect it. BlackRifle.com. Use promo code DailyWire. All right, David. We got some great non-conference matchups.
Yes. Our top 10 non-conference games for this college football season, 2024. Let's just start at the top. Michigan hosting Texas. Which, are we going to be there? Are we not going to be there? It's the question of our time. Okay.
The rumors.
But
I may be in Monaco.
Michigan versus Texas. First of all, this is one of those type of games. Even if both programs were down that year, it's a great matchup just from a brand recognition standpoint. That's one that would catch your eye, even if you're like, but Michigan and Texas won't be great this year. But we're coming off a season where both those teams made the college football playoff. Michigan wins its first championship. Texas makes its first college football playoff. Obviously, we got a lot of questions with Michigan. You know, new head coach and quarterback,
to me, when you look at it from an all-around standpoint, I think there's a couple games you could have put at number one. I mean, hell, I think you can make an argument from where 70% of the games on this list, you could put it number one. But there's so many fascinating storylines outside of, David, to even take it further, that it's Michigan versus Texas.
Yeah.
That it's a huge brand versus a huge brand. This is Pizza Hut versus Domino's, people. This is Sister Schubert versus Sara Lee. This is as big of the brands of college football as you get. But you have one team that, like you said, is coming off a national championship, but we have questions. We have questions at very important positions, but we know they're going to be talented. They're gargantuan up front. They're elite on defense, going up against a Texas team that we're going to get to find out if last year was just a fluke or if it was something that we're going to get used to seeing even before they get into Southeastern Conference play. So is Texas, what's been the knock on Texas before Sark got there? It's that they were soft up front, right? Going from Club Med to Judge Dredd. Well, Texas proved that wrong last year, right? They were as tough as a $2 steak up front. Now you get to go against the people that invented toughness on the line of scrimmage, and that's Michigan. So we're going to find out answers about Michigan early offensively, and we're also going to find out, is Texas here for round two, and are they going to be able to hold up to the fight, and is Quinn Ewers going to be able to come through in another big game early and really stay healthy, David? So I think, if there's a reason we put this number.
So, Blaine, I mean, obviously we talked about the brands. I mean, both teams are going to be good this year, but this is one of those games, like we just talked about in the open with the 12-team playoff, this is one of those games where it's going to be tough for either of these teams, whichever team loses, to make the college football playoff unless they can move forward and win their conference. That's why I think this game goes at number 1. And right now, like you told me earlier, Texas got an extra point. So Texas is minus 3.5 right now, and the over-under is 48.5.
This game, if you're Texas, why? Anybody else?
The first year in the SEC.
Anybody else other than Georgia? Like, this is not a good
and on the
matchup
road
for you. This feels like, I don't know, this feels like a Bitcoin guy versus, a guy who does landscape every day, right? One's fancy, the other one's flash. And Texas proved some things up front on both sides of the ball last year. Yeah, but you're about to walk into something that you're not ready for, in my opinion.
Really?
Especially between the tackles. The winner of this game, I think, is who can control the tempo. Who can control the tempo of this game? Because if it slows down and comes a knock and drag out type of game, I'm leading from the boys in the big house. I promise you that. I'm interested to see, because Texas, to get over the hump, who do you have to beat? All right, you have to beat Georgia, and you're going to have to beat Ohio State. You know how you beat those teams? You have to beat them up front. How did Michigan win the national championship last year? They beat everybody up front.
Yeah, and this goes back to what we started the show with enhancing the regular season. Regardless who loses this game, you still have a chance to make the playoff. Because, it's not a conference game, right? So you can still enter conference play, win the conference, get the automatic bid. But also, if you lose this game, that's at least what we think going into the year, that's a quality loss.
Yeah.
Right? Like, there is such things as, and we're going to start hearing this more and more, quality loss, right? Or a bad win, against a really bad team that it's not going to help you. So I actually think the people that are sitting here and saying, oh, well, Texas, and they did get a very fortunate break with their conference schedule, especially when you compare it to Oklahoma. They're kind of evening things out, taking their ass up to Ann Arbor to play a Michigan team that's got a bunch of Siberian cave trolls up front. They're trying to just Hellboy punch you in the face. So it's fascinating. We're really you want to talk about breaking in the quarterback, David?
Yeah.
Like, we're going to see.
Broken in.
We're going to see at this point.
While most teams pre-college football playoff in college football did go undefeated when they won a national championship, it wasn't every year. We saw some one-loss teams either be crowned national champions by the press, or in the BCS era, one-loss teams still be national champs. So they didn't go perfect. And honestly, like, that was one knock on college football. Is like, you have to win every single game. And what about the teams that do get better throughout the year? That's a real thing. And so, we're throughout this list, I think we can keep bringing up different points. But number 2 on the list, Texas A&M is going to host Notre Dame week 1, and that's in College Station. I think we're going to find out a lot about both programs.
We will. It's funny. Texas A&M has a brand new coach.
Yeah.
This is his first game as their new head coach after they moved on from Jimbo Fisher, after they gave him half the gold in the vault. You're playing at home, prime time. You're playing against Notre Dame. But guess who all the pressure's on? It's on Notre Dame. Mike Elko loses his first game. Hey, it's game 1 here. He's got to get his guys in here. He's got to get the system right. We have some time. It's not a conference game. Notre Dame. Well, Marcus Freeman's about time to put up or shut up when it comes to doing stuff in the postseason.
Yeah.
You've brought in another high-level quarterback in Riley Leonard after you weren't able to get it done with Sam Hartman, even though that game against Ohio State was brutal at the end. And you're not in a conference. So these games matter way more for you than they do for A&M when we're looking at opportunities. That's not to say Notre Dame has to win this game or they're not going to make the playoff. But at the end of the day, I don't see Notre Dame making it if they're not 11-1 or better. So if you lose this one, you got to run the table the rest of the way. And their schedule is not exactly a walk. I
got it right here if you want it.
Go ahead, do it real quick.
You're A&M week 1, Northern Illinois at home week 2. You're on the road at Purdue week 3, Miami, Ohio week 4, Louisville at home, Stanford at home, Georgia Tech at home, Navy at home, FSU at home, Virginia at home, Army at home, and you finish the season at USC.
And look, man, I can't wait to see this quarterback battle here. Yeah. I think Connor Wegman is really as good as it gets, and Riley Leonard as good as it gets in the country. We need to see Riley Leonard stay healthy for an entire season, and what he can do, not just through the air, but with that RPO game. I mean, he's absolutely deadly. And Mike Elko was his coach last year at Duke. He's coming over now. He's going to coach against him. One quick point here. So Notre Dame obviously not in a conference, so we could pull out several of their games throughout the year to pick as top non-conference games. We decided not to pick any Notre Dame games that are in the ACC because they've been kind of quasi-playing that ACC schedule. So you won't see Notre Dame, Florida State on this list. But that's number 2, and that's opening week. Again, these games are early. Again, week 1, Florida versus Miami. Guys, we've been talking about it ad nauseum, and this is a great game. This is the one I wanted to bring up when we were talking about does the 12-team playoff water down the regular season. Because here's an example, okay? Let's say Miami goes to Florida in Gainesville and loses in that opener, which is quite possible. I mean, Florida's going to have a good football team. You're playing in the swamp, right? Now let's say Florida goes through and plays that gauntlet of a schedule, right? And it's not just the tough SEC schedule. They got Florida State at the end of the year. Let's say they go forward and they're a 6-6 team or 7-5 team. Meanwhile, Miami loses that opener. They're 0-1, and they move forward and they win the ACC. They're going to get an automatic qualifier. And maybe people who don't want to see a 12-team playoff can look at that and say, see, that week 1 didn't even matter when Miami lost at Florida because Miami just goes and they win the ACC and Florida goes and they have a tough SEC schedule and they're middle of the pack. But again, I think that trade-off, again, if Miami wins the ACC, they're going to have beaten some really good teams.
Yeah, and you should be in the playoff.
And they should be in the playoff.
We said the same about Florida State last year.
And that trade-off to me is worth all of the games at the end of the year of teams who are now going to be fighting to try and make one of those final spots.
Yeah.
Right? Like when you see Ole Miss trying to make a final spot at the end of the year, or Penn State or teams like that.
Yeah, and again, and we've said this multiple times here on Crain and Company over the past couple weeks, this Florida-Miami game, to me, is a game that's worth 3 years for both programs. I really, truly believe that. Now, maybe a little bit more for Florida than Miami, and here's why I say that. Billy Napier, we're looking at that schedule. Everybody's been talking about, hot seat, and they should, right? Florida beats Miami, a Miami team that a lot of people are picking to make the playoff, a Miami team that a lot of people are picking to bring Miami back to prominence. That's an in-state rival, right? Maybe not to the level of Florida State, but it's still an in-state rival that you beat first game of the year to give you incredible momentum going forward. So now if Florida ends up 7-5, man, y'all beat Miami. You may have lost to Florida State, but you beat Miami. Then on the other side of that, and outside of, again, the positive momentum it would give Florida at the beginning of the year, you have Miami. Mario Cristobal loses this game. All people have done, Mario Cristobal's 12-13 at Miami, I believe, overall. All people have done is make fun of Florida the whole offseason. People are not viewing Florida through the prism of how good that roster really is. They're viewing Florida through the prism of being a laughingstock because of what's happened with Billy Napier, the disorganization on the field, and what it looks like his tenure is going to end up in and go down in flames. Well, a lot of people view Mario Cristobal through a prism of hadn't made a lot of great in-game coaching decisions. We can go back to the Georgia Tech game, and if you go on the road and lose to not only a team that people are laughing at and making fun of, that they think are going to be a dumpster fire, but that team is not only in state, but they're the state school, or the school that's named after the state in name only, that's a bad look for Miami going forward. Now, this super team that you put together with Cam Ward and Damian Martinez and all these guys, you start off on that bad note, with an ACC schedule ahead of you, you better make the playoff. You better make it.
Well, I'm glad it's early, and right now the line's -2.5 Miami, -122 on the money line, Blaine, and over under 54.5.
It's going to be hard for me not to lean Miami in this game, especially with the addition of Cam Ward and what they look like up front. But both these head coaches are staring down the barrel, and that's not an exaggeration.
Yeah, and Billy's just closer. Billy's just the guns touching his forehead.
And let me ask you this: which coach would this game be more important to?
I think it has to be Billy Napier.
You think so?
I still don't think Mario Cristobal's as on a hotter seat as Billy Napier.
No, and that's not what I'm saying. I want to make sure I point that out. All I'm saying is there has been a slow under Mario at Miami, and this is got to be the payoff year. This is it, because when does it get better than this? When do you get Cam Ward again? When do you get to mix that with Damian Martinez and Restrepo and all these other guys? So I think the simmer will turn into a full-on heat. I think Billy Napier's already under the heat. This could just, because again, you know how momentum works, guys, good or bad. if Florida loses this game against Miami, a lot of people are going to say, see, told you so. Florida sucks, and they got the rest of this schedule they got to play. This is
how much
massive
as a life
game.
raft does this win give you for either coach?
I think it's a much bigger life raft for Billy Napier than it is for Mario Cristobal, because I think Florida is not going to win the SEC, and I think Miami could still win the ACC if they lose this.
Yeah, which means Miami could lose this game and still make the college football playoff. I think it's going to be tough for Florida to make the college football playoff even if they win this game.
Yeah, I agree.
Right. All right, next one up. LSU at Southern Cal.
Man.
LSU continues this streak of playing awesome openers. This one's going to be in Vegas, and as we sit here right now, this is Southern Cal's getting 6.5 points plus 168 on the money line, and the over-under is 62.5. I don't know how you don't bang the over.
I know, it's almost scaring me that it's so blatantly obvious, and you know that's going to get bet up. It's got to get bet up. There's no way it gets bet down. You know what's funny about this is we're going to get to find out about LSU's defense, because say what you want about Lincoln Riley, and believe me, we've said all of it. They're going to be good on offense.
Yeah.
They're going to have a good plan. Miller Moss, I think, is going to be a good player. So we're going to find out about the LSU defense and how much better they have gotten, right? Which has been the question with LSU. The funny part about it is, I don't know if we're going to know about LSU's offense yet, because Southern Cal has been really bad on defense. I know they brought in UCLA's DC and hired North Dakota State's head coach Matt Entz as the linebackers coach. They got rid of, the Grinch who stole happiness, which is, half of the plan there for Oklahoma fans and USC fans. But I just don't know if we're going to know how good Garrett Nussmeier and this LSU offense is against this Southern Cal defense. But we're sure going to know how good the LSU defense is against this Southern Cal offense. And it's funny because, everybody said Lincoln Riley ran away from the SEC to go to USC when the LSU job was open. Brian Kelly ran to the SEC from Notre Dame to try and have a chance to win the whole thing, at least give himself the best chance. And he ended up at LSU where Lincoln Riley didn't. I think LSU, again, is minus 6.5. You said USC's getting 6.5 points. I may stay away from the spread in this one, but it's going to be very, very hard for me not to take the over, especially at 62.5. The question becomes here, David, if Southern Cal loses this game, how much heat does Lincoln Riley start to feel around?
What do you think over there?
It would be surprise to me if Lincoln Riley starts feeling any kind of heat.
Any kind of heat.
I still think you're right. I know that seems crazy, but
unless they just get dogged.
maybe unless you can just say, well, it's Los Angeles. We have there's too much other entertainment here for us to deal with a bad USC. We're not going to put up with it. But to me, it still feels like he just got there and they just paid him all this money.
Yeah.
They're not favored against LSU. Look, they're looking down the barrel of 7-5, right?
Yeah.
Even 8-4. I just don't know how you pull the trigger on the guy.
I just don't see a lot of improvements on that. I mean, Bear Alexander's going to be your best player.
And look, I got a hard time trusting him, man. Like, if we're going to be honest.
But Miller Moss, dog.
Yeah.
I mean,
I think Miller's got
they have a
some stats
receiver. God, what's his name? Hicks.
Dude, they got
a receiver who's
multiple
an
guys.
absolute dog. You're going to expect that with the Lincoln Riley.
Marshawn Lloyd,
This
the
is going to
running
be
back from-
interesting. I mean, somewhat similar teams. New quarterback. Struggling defenses. Head coaches who need to prove that they can actually have a defense on the field. So this is huge for both these coaches.
Where's this game being played at again, David?
I think it's Allegiant Stadium. It's in Vegas.
It's in Vegas,
so
that's right.
I don't know if that's Allegiant Stadium, probably.
I think so.
But
Man.
they're not playing in the Sphere. That'd be pretty cool,
That'd be
though.
dope.
Yeah,
We're
I
just
still think
in the Bellagio lobby.
I still think this is
All right, number 5, Georgia, Clemson, Aflac kickoff game. Obviously, Aflac, very important in our household. We're really excited for this game. This is a rematch from 2 years ago when Georgia beat Clemson 10-3 in the opener and then won that first national championship in 40 years.
Yeah, I'm going to be honest with you. I think this may be the worst game on the list.
You mean the worst football game?
The worst,
most lopsided?
The most lopsided. Clemson, I think, is going to be really good defensively, but I wouldn't be shocked if they put up that 3 number again on offense. And I think Georgia, as good as Clemson is defensively, I think Georgia may be better offensively this year than any year we've seen Georgia. That's including with Stetson Bennett. I truly believe that because of what they have outside. I mean, people kind of forget, yes, Georgia's had nice wide receivers, but they've done a lot of it with the run game, with play action, with tight end. even with Ra Thomas being gone, I look at this group they brought in with Dominic Lovett. You got Oscar Delp at tight end. Jurasek, the transfer from Stanford, coming in at tight end. You're going to be really good up front. You got ETN at running back with a couple other guys. Dylan Bell's a Swiss Army knife. And Carson Beck, I think, is going to be the number one quarterback taken, or one of the top 2 quarterbacks taken, probably with Shadur Sanders. I think Clemson can hold Georgia for a while. I just don't think they can hold them for the whole game. I think Georgia breaks it open in the second half. I love Georgia minus 13.5 in this game. And it's not because I hate Dabo or I hate Clemson or I love Kirby and I love Georgia. This reminds me, and I've said this, of the games because I think Georgia's the new old Bama. And this reminds me of the games where Bama would play Florida State or Bama would play Michigan or Bama would play Miami and they would pick them up and break their ass in half week 1. I think this could be a season ruiner for Clemson. I really believe that, and I hate to say that, but if Cade Klubnik didn't make it to week 2, I would not be shocked.
So 13.5, like you said, on the spread, plus 450 on the money line, 40.5 over under.
Yeah, plus 450 on the money line.
Yeah.
Look, I'm not going to get in the business of betting against Georgia week 1 again. Last time
Rumor has it there could be a
Last
big
time I
bet
did that, they played Oregon and they beat them by 50. And all the great players Jake just rattled off for Georgia, they're better up front on offensive line. Their best players are on the offensive line. If that doesn't scare you, I don't know what will.
Yeah.
Like, I really don't know what will. Will they be as good on defense as you've seen in past years? No, I don't think so. Do they have some of the best players? Malachi Stark's best safety in the league. Do they have key pieces? Yeah. But I don't think, one, from a skill position, Clemson's good enough to really to give the Warrior Georgia in the back end. I don't think Clemson's good. Mustafa's good.
And people say, not to cut you off, but people say, oh, well, we got these 2 brand new freshmen that we really like. I'm going to tell you something. They may be nice down the road. This ain't who you want to open up with week 1 with a couple freshman playmakers on the outside.
Yeah.
Not against these kids.
Yeah, against Malachi Starks.
Yeah.
Good luck.
Clemson, I need you to listen up right now. I need you to prove these guys wrong.
Oh, wow.
Okay, I need you to come to play. This is the Aflac kickoff game.
David's going to bet.
He's talking about it's a season
Money
ruiner.
line.
Clemson, let's figure it out, man. Let's come to play and let's cover that spread.
Well, speaking of figuring it out, we've all figured out that carbs may be life's greatest gift.
Yeah.
But due to modern diets and sedentary lifestyles, I know what that word means, we often eat more carbs than we need to, and we store the excess. Now, this prevents our bodies from running on ketones, often leading to reduced energy levels, unwanted weight gain, chronic metabolic diseases. Basically, it makes you sleepy and it makes you flabby. But that's where our friends at Ketone IQ, all right, who came up with Ketone IQ, HVMN, come to help. All right, our Ketone IQ, we take it. It's a clean shot of energy with no sugar or caffeine. And top Olympic athletes like Des Linden to Michael Andrews to Ironman world champion Sam Ladlow, HVMN has unlocked the benefits of drinkable ketones, and it allows you to return to an ancient source of energy on demand. And for a limited time only, you can save 30% off your first subscription order and receive a free 6-pack of Ketone IQ when you go to ketone.com/booster. Now, let me spell this to you. It's spelled a little bit different. It's ketone.com/booster. You'll get 30% off your first subscription order today, and you'll feel 100% better about everything going on.
We doing this or
Slurp
what?
it up, Dave.
We doing this or what?
Slurp,
Blaine
slurp,
loves the
slurp,
taste of
slurp,
these.
Slurp,
Come on.
slurp. Y'all got it, boys. Throwing back that ancient source of energy. You see Egyptian hieroglyphs.
Woo!
So good.
There it is, baby.
Look, he loves the taste of these. I'm still getting used to it, but man,
So
I love
good.
the way it makes me.
Man, I tell you, you probably need to drink one of those before we talk about this next game, because it's,
Oh, you talking about the West Virginia Penn State?
yeah.
Yeah, and that one's
Oh.
that's another week 1 game. That one's at West
Week
Virginia.
1, it's loaded like a
Loaded.
baked potato at Outback Steakhouse. And don't forget, last year, Penn State scored a touchdown as time expired to kind of run the checkup on
Ooh.
West Virginia.
So West Virginia forgot about that for sure.
Oh, yeah. I guarantee they forgot about it every day until they remembered it for every day. Fascinating. So, Drew Aller, we've talked about him ad nauseum. He's got to prove it to us that he can make the throws, right? All of them. And it's not just on him. There's a reason they moved on from their OC last year. They're going to try and open it up, spread it out more. So when you do play the Ohio States or the big-time games that you have to play, you actually have a guy that can throw a slant and feel good about it. But West Virginia, like a phoenix, rising from the ashes last year. They thought Neil Brown was going to be fired, boys. What does he come out and do with the veteran leadership of Garrett Green, who's the most freshman-looking senior I've ever seen in my life at quarterback, help resurrect him? I love everything about this game. It's at West Virginia. This may be, if it stays at 10.5, Jake's best bet of the weekend. West Virginia plus 10.5 at home. There may be some furniture burnt, fellas, because I may be taking WVU on the money line as well.
Oh, wow.
I think there are 13 flavors of pissed about it, and I don't know if Penn State can throw it. And you lost Lambert Smith. You got a couple good pieces. Fleming's nice. All right, Fleming's nice. But I don't know if I super trust Penn State to throw it. Can West Virginia hold up front, right?
Do you trust Garrett
Right
Green
here.
and West Virginia to throw it?
Yes, I do.
God, that Penn State defense is going to be really good.
Yeah, no chop.
Like, I know, but their secondary is going to be so
They'll have a new chop.
good.
Chop-
They always do.
They have a
They're gonna
safety, I
keep
believe
a
it's like
chop
his last
now.
name's Winston or something like that.
As long as they don't have another Saquon.
6'3".
Saquon Barkley playing there still gives me
he's in
nightmares.
Philly.
92 overall is a strong safety. So.
All right, so I want to pull up here. All right, so here's Garrett Green. Garrett Green's going to be a fifth-year senior this year, by the way. Here's his stats from last year. 2,400 yards passing, 53% completion percentage. He threw 16 touchdowns and 4 interceptions.
Yep.
Here's Drew Aller, who was a sophomore. So Drew Aller's going to be in his third year, right? He was still a young guy last year. Threw for 2,600 yards, 60% completion, 25 touchdowns, and only 2 interceptions. There's a lot of good there, man.
There's a lot of good there. But like,
good.
if you watch him, especially in the big games, a lot of what I see, like, yes, I'm like, all right, I'm watching you throw. You can get better as a thrower. A lot of it is the play calling that I want to see if it opens up for him. Because they either didn't trust him to throw the ball against Michigan or Ohio State, or in any of the big games, which this is going to be a big game for them. They want to get off to a good start. It's either they didn't trust him or they didn't think he was good enough. Like, it's either one of those two. So, like, when I look at Garrett Green, we also got to look at the rushing yards, too. Because Garrett Green's a guy that can really run. He
That's
brings
fair.
an extra element. That's why you may have a couple.
Yeah, he had 120 carries last year.
He rushed for
772
yards.
Yeah, like it's-
and added another 13 touchdowns.
So
that's a valid point.
Yeah, they're different type players, but I still think from what I've seen, Garrett Green is a better thrower than what Drew
And
Aller
Penn State has a
been.
lot better roster.
They do a much better
roster. Drew Aller kind of reminds me of Bubble Boy, right? Because they're scared to let him actually out and run the offense. Like, they're protecting him from. So if you want to beat Ohio State and beat Michigan, these guys, you're going to have to get a difference maker at quarterback.
Well, it's almost Munchausen by proxy football style. Like, we got to, oh, God, he's going to get, something bad's going to go. We can't do anything.
And as much as good
Drew Aller
as
had 200 yards rushing and 4 touchdowns.
Okay, as good as Michigan was up front on both sides of the ball, in the big games, what was the difference?
JJ
McCarthy.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I get it. They didn't play well against Michigan or the Buckeyes. Welcome to the rest of the conference, too.
That's
though.
basically
It's just that Penn State's been knocking on that.
Penn State has the roster to compete.
Yeah.
And they do
All right.
again this year.
Let's move on. The next one, Tennessee versus NC State. This is technically a neutral site game. This is in Charlotte.
Maybe the sneakiest game on here.
Not touching it.
Because I'm not touching this game at all.
Week 2 in Charlotte.
Week 2 in Charlotte, NC State, Grayson McCall. You look at what they've added around him, including, remember this name, Concepcion. He was the ACC Freshman of the Year last year, a wide receiver they have. Oh, dude's got a lot of witch in him. I know Tennessee won't sleep on NC State. I want to make sure the Tennessee fans understand who you're playing. Dave Doran, this isn't like some middle-of-the-road ACC team that's not very talented. Yes, they did lose Peyton Wilson, who is one of our favorite players. I think he's going to absolutely tear the NFL up at linebacker. But they have pieces returning on that defense that could give Tennessee some problems. I want to see Tennessee up front against NC State. That's how I'm going to be able to kind of project more of what Tennessee's going to be down the stretch when they've got to get into a little bit more of these thicker games. But do not be shocked. I think the spread's 4.5? Tennessee, somewhere around there. I'm not going to bet on this one, but do not be surprised if this game comes down to the final drive and maybe Tennessee having to kick a game-winning field goal or block a field goal to tie the game to go to overtime. I think it could be sneaky, Dave.
Right now, NC State's getting 4.5 points. They're plus 155 on the money line. And then over-under's 56.5.
Yeah, that plus 155. That's not a, oh my God, there's no chance.
If it's like a one-possession game, you're not going to find a crazy money line bet. I'm so interested in the Nico Grayson McCall matchup that we haven't seen a lot from Nico. Obviously, only seen him play in the bowl game, but we've seen Grayson play a lot, especially when he was at Coastal. How much does Grayson run at NC State?
Well, it's this.
That's what I want to know.
Well, that's what we ask about Cam Rising and all these guys that have gotten hurt. Like, how many times you've been told in the back of your mind, hey, don't take off unless you have to. We're going to try and protect you. Get out of bounds, get out of bounds. But when the game's on the line or it's third down or you're trying to extend a drive and maybe Tennessee just scored and you don't want to go down 2 scores, is Grayson McCall going to go stick his face in it? Well, actually, the question is, I don't think it's will Grayson McCall stick his face in it because I've seen him do it. It's will Grayson McCall stick his face in it and get back up and be able to stick his face in it again? That's the question I ask.
Yeah, and I mean, Grayson's not a phenomenal thrower of the football.
No, he's not. Good. His arm strength isn't superior to a lot of guys.
All right, next one up here. Nebraska, Colorado. Again, this is the top 10 most intriguing college football games. Some of these may have a major impact on the college football playoff. Some of them may not. I don't think Nebraska, Colorado is going to have a huge impact on the college football playoff. But it is an intriguing football game nonetheless, just because we saw the amount of viewership that was driven by Deion Sanders last year at Colorado, and they beat Nebraska. Now this game's going to be in Lincoln. Year 2, Matt Rule adding Dylan Raiola as starting quarterback. So I find it to be an intriguing matchup.
Everybody is going to be, I do too. And I'm glad that this game matters now because a couple of years ago, nobody would have cared about Colorado playing. Nebraska fans would have cared. People would have cared about Nebraska, but nobody in Colorado would have cared. Everybody's going to be talking about Shadur and Travis going into this game, right? Especially if Colorado is able to beat North Dakota State week 1, because this is another week 2 game, I believe, right? This is week 2, week 3, somewhere around there.
Yeah.
I think this is Dylan Raiola's coming out party. I think there's a good possibility that happens. A low-key part of this game that I love watching, just because I love ball, especially defense, is I want to see how Tony White attacks Colorado. Now in a system, remember, with Sean Lewis, they were trying to get the ball out quick.
Yeah.
They were trying to hide that offensive line, what he brought over from Kent State. Well, now with Shermer, who they brought in, it's more of a drop-back game, protect, go through the reads. So I watched Tony White last year just box these guys in. Didn't bring heavy pass rush, right, against Shadur a lot. He kind of let them spit the ball out and let the ants go make the tackle, right, because you weren't going to get there. Well, now, does he kind of bring the funk a little bit more because the system is different? I want to see the battle between Tony White and Shadur Sanders in that Colorado offense just as much as I want to see what Dylan Raiola and this Nebraska offense is able to do to a Colorado defense that I still don't trust.
Right now, Colorado's getting 5.5 points.
They're getting
That's a little bit surprising, given that we hadn't even seen.
What's the over/under?
So they're getting 5.5 points plus 176 for Colorado on the money line. Again, some good value there. 56.5 on the money line, or on the 56.5 on the over/under.
I don't think anybody really has the pulse on this Colorado team. I think Vegas is going to think they're a lot better than what they are. I mean, the new football game obviously expected that. Yeah. I think right now between Nebraska and Colorado, it's just a fight of who's the prettiest girl right now. Who can put themselves more into the spotlight, whether that's Nebraska or Colorado. I like Nebraska in this game because, look, at the end of the day, you can have all the pieces. You have the quarterback and the receiver. If you have to pick up that quarterback after every play, it ain't going to last that long, brother.
Yeah.
All right, 2 more here. Next one up, Wisconsin host Alabama. Again, we'll have to see how much impact this actually has on the college football playoff, but it is a really intriguing non-conference matchup. Mm-hmm. And again, for Alabama, who does have a great chance to make the college football playoff, you got to go to Wisconsin and win.
Yeah, I think this will probably be the second most lopsided game, could possibly be the first, and here's why. I think Wisconsin will have the best plan possible under Luke Fickell to beat Alabama. I think Alabama will have a great plan against Wisconsin. But here's the difference. I don't think Tyler Van Dyke can do anything against the athletic ability of this Alabama defense and be able to create. I think everything is going to have to go perfect every play for Tyler Van Dyke to be able to have success against this Alabama defense. I think Jalen Milroe can get away with basically anything against Wisconsin and just take off when he wants to. I don't think they can get him on the ground.
Fastest guy in the stadium.
I don't think they can get him on the ground. And when it comes down to it, I think this game is it's going to look like a wave falling on Tyler Van Dyke because he's not going to be able to move out of the pocket and create. I think Jalen Milroe may run for 150. I think you may start hearing that Jalen Milroe is going to win the Heisman calls. Not that I think he is after this game. I would not be shocked at all if Jalen Monroe ran for 150 yards and threw for 300 yards in this game. I think Alabama may score 60 points.
Right now, it's -9.5 Alabama, 55.5 over under.
Yeah.
I'm so interested to see what this offense for Wisconsin is going to look like because it's an air raid offense, correct?
Yeah.
It went from the complete opposite of what Wisconsin was. And it gives them a better chance to beat Alabama, in my opinion, because back in the day, what you did, there's no way you're going to beat Alabama. Just from an up front standpoint of what Bama had on defense. But I think I agree with Jake, this will be a coming out party for Jalen Monroe. He'll be able to do anything he wants against this team. Because there's not a guy on this defense who can stop him. There's not a guy in the stadium. There's not a guy at the University of Wisconsin that will be able to stop Jalen Monroe. And it hurts, but it's the truth.
And it goes back. You can have the greatest plan ever as a coach, but like if you can't get Jalen Monroe on the ground, like it doesn't matter. Like none of that matters. It's great. It's great. You'll get hyped up. They'll be jumping around. Camp Randall will be nuts. We want Bama. We want Bama. You will know on that first drive when Jalen Monroe makes a guy miss. Maybe somebody busted at tackle, makes a miss, takes off, makes another guy miss, and goes for 50 on the first drive, and they just pound it in. I don't know. I got a hard time trusting Van Dyke, man. Yeah. I really do. I really do.
Fun fact, when was the last time Luke Fickell coached against Alabama?
The last time that Luke Fickell coached against Alabama, he was the head coach at Cincinnati, and they lost to him in the playoff.
College football playoff.
And you know what? I think that Cincinnati team could beat that Wisconsin team pretty bad.
You think? The 3 first-rounders.
I'd take Desmond Ridder over Tyler Van Dyke 3 million times.
That's Sauce Gardner.
Yeah, that is true.
Hike.
Yeah, that is true.
All right, last one on the list, some Group of 5 love here. No odds for this game yet. This is a little bit deeper in the season, but Florida State playing Memphis. We've been talking about this game because a Group of 5 team is going to make the playoff.
They will. If you're Memphis, can you get in at 11-1? And if this is the one.
I think so, but Fresno State better not run the table.
Well, here's the thing. If we get down into a pissing contest between Memphis, who's 11-1, with a loss at Florida State, and then Fresno State, who's 11-1, with a loss at Michigan,
or Boise State,
or Boise State with a loss at Oregon, or Liberty that's undefeated.
Yeah.
That's where it's going to get. That 5th spot, right? Or not the 5th seed, but that 5th automatic spot. That's where it's going to get dicey.
Which Liberty had the worst strength of schedule a year ago at 133.
And they probably got it again this year.
But got the
they would have got the
bowl game. Yeah, exactly. They got to play Oregon in the bowl game.
So when I look at this matchup,
the New Year's Six,
and we'll know so much more about Florida State after the first couple weeks, but especially the first week against Georgia Tech in Ireland. I need to watch DJ. Memphis, I think, is going down there with an offense that can run against Florida State's defense. Because Florida State's replacing a lot of guys on defense. They're talented, but they're young. What I worry about is, can Memphis stop the run? Because if they can't stop the run, Mike Norvell is going to do what his team does best. He's good at adjusting to what his players do as opposed to them adjusting what he wants to do. If Memphis can't stop the run, it does 2 things. It takes DJU screwing the game up out of play. But it also keeps Memphis' offense off the field because of the clock rules. So when I look at this Memphis defense, they've had some good transfers come on the offensive line. I think they can hold up, like I said, on offense. I don't know if Memphis can stop Florida State on defense. The question then becomes, how many possessions does Memphis get in the game? And when they get in the red zone, can they score touchdowns or are they kicking field goals? I think this game's actually going to be tight. We'll know a lot more. But I don't think Boise State has a chance against Oregon. I just don't. I don't think they have a chance. I don't think Fresno State has a chance against Michigan, to be honest with you. I think Memphis got a chance.
Does that say more about Memphis or FSU?
That's a good question.
It
says about both.
FSU. It's FSU.
Yeah.
I think it is FSU.
I think you're right. Because if you switch that and had Memphis play Oregon, you would take Oregon.
I would take Oregon.
But if you said Fresno State's going to go play Florida State, you say, would they have a shot?
Well, if Memphis were to go play Michigan, I would almost say something similar to what I'm saying about Florida State. Now, we don't know the quarterback situation at Michigan right now, and I think Michigan's better up front than Florida State is on the offensive line. But I'd still have the same question: can Memphis stop the run? Okay. Like that's to me, that's where.
Well, if you're Memphis, your game plan walking in this game has how many people can I put in the box, and DJU, you're going to have to beat me.
That's exactly right. If I can put 12 in the box,
it's got to be your game plan.
And Seth Hennigan take care of the football.
Seth's a dog too.
That's true. I think Seth's an NFL player. I think Seth's going to be one of those guys that goes down the Senior Bowl and really.
You know, it's amazing how many good college quarterbacks they are that go to the NFL and disappear.
Well, that's because the NFL.
I mean,
you know how many good.
Here's a good way to think about it, man. Is they're the 32 best in the world at their job. Like, who can say they're one of the 32 best in the world at anything?
There's a lot of people go to Harvard and fail. It's just part of it.
Yeah.
That's what it is. All right, so we want to know, what games did we miss out? Are there any that are more intriguing to you that are non-conference, right, that could be on this list? Again, like David said, Notre Dame, we took out any games against ACC opponents just because that's kind of, their faux conference, if we want to say that. But we appreciate you guys. Again, obviously, we're not live. It's pre-recorded. We appreciate everybody in the chat. We'll be back live on Monday, one step closer to the kickoff of college football and football season in general. We appreciate y'all, and like the chances, let's not having fun this weekend. We're going. Gone.
Republicans are Nazis. You cannot separate yourselves from the bad white people.
Growing up, I never thought much about race. It never really seemed to matter that much, at least not to me.
Am I racist?
I would really appreciate it if you left.
I'm trying to learn. I'm on this journey.
If I'm going to sort this out, I need to go deeper undercover.
They gon' say I'm racist.
Joining us now is Matt, certified DEI expert.
Here's my certification. And what you're doing is you're stretching out of your whiteness. This is more for you and less for you. Is America inherently racist?
The word inherent is challenging
I
there.
want to rename the George Washington Monument to the George Floyd Monument.
America is racist to its bones.
So inherently.
Yes.
This country is a piece of shit.
White.
Folks.
White.
Trash. White supremacy. White woman. White boy.
Is there a black person around? There's a black person right here. Does he not
They gon'
exist?
say I'm racist.
Hi, Robin.
Hi. What's your name?
I'm Matt.
Just had to ask who you are because you have to be careful.
Never be too careful.
They gon' say you racist.
In theaters September 13th, rated PG-13.